So platelets are important. What's the platelet count? Normal. 150 to 300,000. 450, yeah. See, I don't remember them anymore because I get to cheat and look on the lab results. But y'all got to remember them just long enough to pass this test. Okay? So platelets, those are what we clot with. Those help with clotting. Okay? If I don't have enough platelets, I'm going to be a bleeder. I'm going to be bleeding to death. Okay? Would that be something I'd be worried about if I had an ulcer in my stomach?
Yes.
Yeah, because we already know we're high risk for perforation and bleeding to death. And then I don't have enough platelets, I'm going to bleed internally and nobody will know. Okay? So the normal range is 150 to 400,000 on platelets. For male or female, doesn't matter.
Can you have too many?
Yeah, you can have way too many and be too sick, man. That's when you get clots. Okay? So she brings up a good point. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So if I'm less than 150,000, I'm at risk for bleeding, right?
Yep.
High risk for bleeding because I'm not clotting. If I'm over 400, I'm at high risk for clots. I'm too thick now. My blood's too thick. Okay. The best way I can tell you to remember all this is like an orange juice can. Did I tell you about this already?
No.
Okay, everybody knows concentrated orange juice, and it's been sitting in this hot room, so it's kind of melted a little. Blood is like this, okay, if you think about this. When you have the normal amount of hydration, normally, it's going to be a little bit thick, a little bit thin, just right, okay? So that's normal. Okay, that's normal blood. I'm hydrated. I'm doing good. If you're too thick, like let's say you're dehydrated, you haven't got enough fluid in you, what does this come out as? When this is concentrated, right? It's thick. It's like one big chunk. Thick, syrupy, heavy. That's what happens when your blood is not got enough water in it. It's too thick. Okay? So everything is going to look elevated because water is a diluent. Okay? So right now this is perfectly normal. If my blood was too thick, this would have come out like thick, like concentrated. I need to do what for my patient if their blood's like that? Add water. I need to hydrate them. IV fluids, PO fluids. Okay? If I look and their blood count is real elevated, real high, they're probably a little dehydrated. Now on the opposite end, if this is their normal and it's perfectly balanced right now, everything's in normal range, but I decide, I'm going to drink a lot of extra water, or I'm going to give them too much IV fluids because nobody told the doctor to turn that IV off for 3 days now. Now my patient has had 3 days of extra fluid, and I pour more water. What do I do to that blood? I diluted it. Now it's too thin, and they're going to be dizzy, confused, disoriented because it's too thin. Okay? So that's how you have to think about blood in lab work. You want it to stay balanced. If it's too thick and concentrated, like orange juice out of the can, frozen orange juice, it's too thick and nothing works. At high risk for clots. If it's too thin, that's not good either. They're diluted, they're disoriented, nothing's working either. Okay? So we want to stay in balance. That makes sense?
Yep.
Alright. So what's our next lab we want to look at? What am I doing? Okay. Right in front of me. Okay? So let's do chemistry, yeah. Sodium. We already talked about kind of what sodium does. We need it. It's electrolyte. Sodium, potassium chloride. Those are all stuff that we have to make our brain function, make our body work. So even though we tell people low salt diet, we still need some. It's an electrolyte. It's essential. It makes things work. So sodium's Na. What is it, Heather?
135 to 145.
Right. And I do remember that one. 135 to 145 is the normal range. Okay? That's what we need it to be for us to be in balance, to be in that perfect spot. Okay? If I have too much fluid, what do I expect my sodium to be? If I'm overhydrated, yeah, my sodium's going to be low. I've diluted myself now, okay? But if I'm dry, I'm concentrated, my sodium's going to be up, right? It's going to be real high. So when you look on a patient's lab work and everything is super elevated all the way down, you'll probably dehydrated. Now, what if everything else is in normal range, but my sodium's like 200? What does that tell you?
You're taking too much salt.
They've been eating too much salt. Yeah, their diet is too salty. Okay, So look at it as a whole, but then break it down individually too, okay? So if they ask you a question about, this patient comes in and tells you that they have swelling in their hands and feet, and you look at their sodium and it's 150, what would the next thing be to do? Ask them about their diet, right? What are they eating? What's making them hold fluid?
Tons of ramen.
Yeah, I love ramen. No, you don't eat ramen.
So,
Right.
elevated is what?
Well, it's just, if it's elevated, it just means they've got too much salt.
Okay.
Too much sodium.
Low?
Yeah, they're probably diluted. No, they're diluted. They've got too much fluid. Okay. Now, if they're low on their sodium, what else could that mean too that we've done to them?
Overhydrated.
We've overhydrated them, but remember some of our stuff we've diuresed them.
Yeah, that's what's diuretic.
Yeah. So again, look at that and see when they ask you those questions. Think about that. It's complicated, but you can break it down because it's real easy. It's either high or low. What caused it? Okay, potassium. What does potassium do to our body? What do we need potassium for? Yeah, helps with electricity in the muscles, conductivity of the heart. We want it to stay in a good normal range. 3.5 to 5.3 is what I learned. It might be a little off on something else stuff. 3.5, 5.3. That's real easy to remember because it's just and it's super important. Gotta have potassium. We already said there's drugs that we can give that spare it, meaning it's gonna make us hold on to it. If it gets too much in our blood, too high, what can let's say we've had that diuretic that saved us all our potassium. Now I've built up too much potassium and I'm elevated. What can high potassium do to you? Irregular heart rate, slow your heart rate too much. So I don't want that. I don't want it to be too high because too much potassium causes heart trouble. It slows the heart rate down too much. And if it's too low, what can happen to my muscles? Muscle cramps. Okay, muscle cramps, muscle aches, lethargy, things like that, fatigue. Okay. And then chloride. These are your three big ones: sodium, potassium, chloride. Those are all your electrolytes.
98 to 106.
98 to 106. Good. That's your normal. And what do we give patients when they come in the hospital in an IV drip? Sodium chloride. It's salt and chloride and water. So that's what it's just an electrolyte. It just helps with hydration. That's all I can tell you about that one. It's a big heavy hitter, but I don't know off the top of my head anything that they're deficient in if they have that. Okay, so just know that one. We'll do ABGs later. We'll get on that one right now. That's a whole other game. So y'all good on sodium, potassium, chloride? Everybody got the normals? Alright. BUN and creatinine. What am I looking for when I draw a BUN and creatinine level? Kidney function. BUN stands for blood, urea, nitrogen. That's what's floating around in our body. Okay? It's a byproduct of our body's metabolism. If the kidneys are working normally, it secretes that urea and nitrogen. Get rid of it. It excretes it. But if my kidneys aren't working, I'm going to have too much of it. Creatinine is a byproduct of when our muscles move. All day long we're moving, and our skeletal muscles give off creatinine, and that's creatine, and that's what you builds up in your system again if your kidneys aren't working. Okay. So when you think of BUN and creatinine, just like with H and H, you think of anemia. BUN and creatinine is to check for what? Kidney function. If they ask you about that, a BUN and creatinine, that should be a clue. This patient's got something going on with their kidneys. Because why else would I care? What's going on, right? Okay. So BUN normal is 718, and creatinine is, this one's a little bit harder. That's why I said just, do flashcards. But 6 and 12, just with a decimal. Remember it. Okay. What was the thing we did with the bun? We remember the bun. Something like hamburger buns or something. So just come up with whatever way that you can remember them, okay? But know that that's just to check for kidney function. Again, if they're high, if they're both elevated, what does that tell me about my patient's kidneys? They're not working. Because this is just a toxin. BUN and creatinine are just toxins that our body makes. and the kidneys normally flush out. So if these are high, that means, hey, my kidneys aren't working. Okay?
So if they're low,
If they're low, I've never seen them low. Maybe they're overhydrated. You've diluted them.
okay.
I've never seen too many with low. It's usually really high. All right. And what's our normal glucose level?
115.
Glucose. I can't even spell. Glucose.
70
70 to 110. Used to be 80 to 120. Somewhere in that range. You know, whatever the blood sugar is. That's just a finger stick blood sugar. 70 to 110. It's glucose. That's the same thing. Finger stick, blood sugar, and glucose. We need glucose because our brain has to have sugar to work. You know how fuzzy you feel when you haven't eaten for days? Like just, I mean, all day. By the end of the day, you're so fuzzy. It's because your brain's not getting any glucose. You have to eat and sleep. Calcium is another thing we already talked about with our drugs this morning. We know that it's an exciter, right? Life of the party. Old Cal, he came to the party. And if we have too much of it, we already talked about what that does. It overstimulates us. So we don't need it too much, but we also need it, so we don't want too low either. 8.4, 10.2.
Our book says 9.0 to 10.0.
Okay.
It's got it.
So 9 to what? 10?
10. Mhm.
That's not very much, is it? 9 to 10. So there you go. Somewhere in that range. Just know that it's not much. You don't have a big leeway with that. Okay. Phosphate, I don't even know what they check that for. Somebody can look it up and tell me later. I don't ever remember checking a phosphate level.
That's
But
3.0 to 4.5.
Yep.
I don't know. What is it for? Does anybody know?
No.
I've never ever checked a phosphate level.
Probably
Probably something to do with maybe osteoporosis or something. I don't know. I have no idea. Magnesium, though, I know what that one's for. What does mag do?
It relaxes muscles.
Yes, it relaxes our muscles. It's a muscle sedative. That's why when you're in labor, they give you that mag to slow everything down. Okay? So what's the normal on it?
1.3 to 2.1.
Yeah, I got 1.3 to 2.1 in my book.
That's right.
So
Yep.
that's not very much either, right? It's a tiny little window. So magnesium helps relax smooth muscles. You can also give magnesium to cardiac patients. If they're having a cardiac event where their heart's just really irritated, remember we talked about earlier, we can give something to sedate the cardiac muscle. Magnesium is one of them. But you gotta be real careful because you don't want to sedate that muscle too much. It won't come back awake. Okay?
What was calcium for?
Calcium, remember that's what excites our muscles, goes into the cells and stimulates. It's like electricity to the muscles and nerves. It helps generate neurotransmitters, muscle transmission. Okay. Protein, we know we need that. Because what do we need to eat a lot of to help with wound healing? Protein. And it also helps us hold water. So, because remember, sodium and protein are water's best friend. Water follows sodium and protein around. And so if we have enough sodium and protein in our body, we'll hold that water. But if we don't have enough, the water leaves with it. So protein, the total should be what?
6 to 8.
6.0 to 8. Yeah. So 6.0 to 8.0. I'll just put 6 to 8. And protein, and then albumin is a kind of a protein too. So if you see albumin, that is a protein that they'll be checking too. Who are the kind of people we need to check this protein level on?
Cirrhosis.
Cirrhosis patients, kidney patients, people in renal failure. Okay, so those are the kind of people that you'll be checking that lab work on. Because remember, they're not cleaning all that out. That's a protein. Okay, now, bilirubin. We just talked about that, didn't we? And I think I gave y'all a handout with the little girl on there, didn't I? The mama holding the baby.
In the sunlight.
So bilirubin is something that is a byproduct when red blood cells break down. Normally, our liver helps flush that out, But if our liver's not working, we have that stay in our system, and that's what causes that yellow jaundice look. So bilirubin, what does your book say, Heather?
I don't know that one.
0.2 to 1.0.
That's what mine has, 0.2 to 1.0. Okay, and so we're going to be checking that level in our liver failure patients, our cirrhosis patients, and maybe gallbladder, that might be part of the liver function test, or in our newborns, our newborn babies. Everybody gets a Billy test because a new human, we don't know if everybody's working, so if they start showing signs of jaundice, whites of the eyes and the mouth and skin, then they will put them under lights and do a Billy test. Okay. Everybody good on those so far?
Yeah.
Does this make it more sense of kind of connecting dots? Alright, now while we're on the liver, remember we said the liver makes cholesterol. It makes the good kind. The bad kind of cholesterol is the kind we eat. McDonald's, Whataburger, all that good stuff I like to eat. It's not good for me. So your total cholesterol is just the total. We'll draw a red top of blood. The total cholesterol is just how much cholesterol is in your bloodstream. And you can see it on somebody who has a lot of cholesterol. It comes out and it just looks like the hamburger grease that you let cool in a skillet. It's in their blood that thick. When you draw the blood and you see that, you're like, oh, this is going to be elevated. Like you can see it. So it's supposed to be
150?
Yeah, I was going to say, it used to be 200 or less.
Well, it's 150. When you get up closer to 200s, when you start worrying about heart problems,
Yes.
and anything over, then it's a serious issue.
So that tells you how big of a deal this is. When I started nursing in 96, 200 or less was considered okay. Now, because we are so unhealthy as a society, it's 150 is where the doctor has to start putting patients on medicine, anti-lipids. That's a big jump, right? So your total is 150 that you want your cholesterol to be. My book still says less than 200, but let's say 150 to 200, because like she said, if you're getting around 200, you're a cardiac risk. You've got too much cholesterol in your bloodstream that you're starting to sclerose, you're plaquing, you're at risk for a clot or a stroke. Okay? So that's your total. Now, HDL is the good one, right? It's heavenly. HDL, that's what our liver makes, the good kind. And it helps combat it, the other stuff. So in a male and female, we look at it a little differently because we know men and women metabolize things differently. So in a male, it should be 29, and in a female, 35. We get to eat a little more and be healthier. Why do you think that? I mean,
Because we got boobs and butts and stuff.
and we grow babies. They don't need as much extra, storage because they're not growing a human. So we get to have a little bit more. And also women probably work harder than men, just saying. So we can burn it off, because we're busy. We multitask, doing everything. We work all day, then come home and work stuff all night. So men have higher risk too, really. That's the honest truth. They have higher risk for this, so they lower their level. They don't even get to get up to 30, okay? Because they're higher risk for having a heart attack or stroke. Okay, and then LDL is the bad one, right? That's my Whataburger settling in my vessels. LDL. And they want it to be, less than 150. Less than 130 for the bad one. Okay. And then triglycerides, what is that? That's another form of the lipids.
Fat.
Yeah, it's more. It just goes along with all this. It's just another kind of fat. It's part of what our body breaks down. So triglycerides, they'll do a cardiac workup, and triglycerides are part of it. And that just tells them again how unhealthy this patient is eating. In a male, they're 40 to 160, and then in a female, 35 to 135.
Yep.
Okay. So triglycerides, that's just another kind of cholesterol. So what? Cholesterol, type of cholesterol. Okay. So they may ask you about these type patients. They'll give you that scenario, and so your patients LDL is 150, and their HDL, female patients HDL was low. Let's just say low. What would that tell you about her? She's got too much of the bad and not enough of the good. So what are you going to teach her to do? What foods to eat? Yeah, she needs to eat healthier. She's got
Salad.
yeah. So that's the way they'll work those kind of problems. So just kind of know if it's too high, that means they're not eating healthy. They need to cut back on fried foods, red meats, things like that. They need to eat more fruits and vegetables because that's what helps clear that out of the body. Especially the deep fried, you can't have deep fried. And then triglycerides the same way. If it's elevated, we need to put them on a cardiac diet, low fat diet. If it's under that, that means good. They're continuing their good diet, exercise, all that. So that's how nutrition and lab kind of work together as far as these questions. Okay, ammonia level, remember, those are the kind of patients that we worry about, we just talked about. What kind of patient? And I gotta check an ammonia level in. Cirrhosis, liver failure. What happens if their ammonia gets too high? Yeah, asterixis, whatever it's called. They have the bird slap wave, and you want it to be 10 to 50, okay? There's a thing, a breakdown of CBC with a diff, and y'all should have that in your book from the first unit. Y'all were in this level. Go through that and just know, because there's different kinds of white blood cells, and depending on what it is, a neutrophil, a lymphocyte, monocyte, all that, tells you what's going on in the body. If one could be infection, one could be they're just having a reaction to something. So just look over that in case they ask you about that. You'll have cardiac enzymes, CPK, MB, all that stuff. Y'all remember that? And troponin levels. Have y'all had any of that on any of your ATI? Did they go that deep? Okay.
I've seen the troponin on there.
All right. So let's just we'll highlight it just so you can recognize it.
It's a little monitor when they're having.
Yeah. Just so you'll recognize it and connect it with heart issues. So CPK is a cardiac. I just remember it's cardiac. This is for somebody they check these. These are cardiac enzymes when they come in and they're they're having chest pain. So in a male, the CPK should be less than 5%. Hold on, I'm looking at the wrong one. Sorry. My eyes are squinching. Yeah. 38 to 148, or 174, sorry. I'll keep you straight. And then female should be 26 to 140. So if it's elevated, that tells me that something's going on with my heart. My heart muscle is cramping. It's not getting enough blood. I'm having some kind of cardiac event. Okay? So CPK is a heart cardiac enzyme. It's checking to see what's going on with your heart. So if it's elevated, there's something going on with my heart. So you're going to put them on oxygen, get an EKG, pain management, right? Notifying the doctor, get the blood pressure, vital signs, all that under control. Okay? And then they break it down into the MB, which is just like more of a detail just for the heart muscle itself, and it should be less than 5%. Okay? I don't know that they'll give you all that detail, but I just want you to recognize, you see that, know that that's cardiac, and think cardiac on your answers, okay? And then troponin is another one that is something that is excreted by the heart when it's under stress, and so it should be less than 0.01, less than. You shouldn't have that in your system normally because your heart should not be. How much was yours?
His was 3.68.
Wow. So her husband that just had the heart, well, he didn't. Did you have a heart attack?
Yeah, he had a heart attack.
Did. His was 3.68. My God. Look at that. It should be 0.01, and her husband's was 3.68. It's a huge indicator that his heart was stressed.
His CPK was 340.
Wow.
Yeah. So again, if you see them elevated, now you know that's a big deal. Okay, and then you look at them; they're sweating, they're cramping, they're hurting, they're having nausea and vomiting, heart attack. Okay, if they're elevated but they're not having any of those symptoms, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not having a heart attack. Maybe they have a high pain tolerance. Or females, we don't have those same symptoms. So just know that these are cardiac markers that we look for, and if those are elevated, something's going on with the heart. Okay. Now, the one time that you don't, that this might be skewed, is if you're in a cardiac unit, they give everything IV. Why do you think that is? One, it's faster and easier, but when you stick a needle into muscle, it releases these enzymes. Okay, isn't the heart a muscle? So if we're checking for muscle enzymes, but then you go and stick something in another muscle, the body doesn't know the difference. It still releases the enzymes. So that's why we don't give any kind of IM to cardiac patients, because it throws off your blood work. Okay. All right. A couple more, and then I'm gonna let y'all go because I know y'all are tired of me.
Never.
Never. You could stay here forever. Another 12 weeks.
No.
No.
No? Alright, fine. PSA, what's that checking for? Prostate, male prostate. That's the organ or the gland that's wrapped around their urethra. And so if it's enlarged, you're going to see a higher rate of it. It should be less than 4. Okay, if it's 5, 6, 7, they've got some benign prostate hypertrophy. So they're probably going to have to get a workup by a urologist and see what's going on with that gland. Why is it so enlarged? Okay, those are the ones that come in dribbling. Remember the little handout of the guy dribbling? Because it's squeezing on his urethra. He can't get his urine out. Okay, so PSA is what we check for male to see if their prostate's enlarged. I'm going to try to look and make sure there's any more. Oh, here's one. We missed this one last time completely. I don't know where y'all missed this one. But what does this mean? You can read my handwriting.
Ferritin is your iron source.
Right, ferritin is an iron. Okay, so you'll have an iron saturation, but ferritin also means iron. Okay, who would I be checking that in? What kind of patient? Anemia. Anybody that's fatigued, short of breath, has all those pale symptoms, and maybe they're a pica eater. Do you know what pica is?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Non-food items. So those are what ferritin is iron.
30
Okay.
years.
Anybody got any more that you can think of off the top of your head that we need to go over? We'll do ABGs later. Urine, you know that there should never be any sugar in the urine. If there is sugar in the urine, what does that indicate? Maybe they're spilling urine, they've got too much in the blood, they're probably diabetic. There should never be protein, because that's the body breaking itself down, so we don't want protein in our urine. Shouldn't be infection. Or ketones, right? Because ketones mean that we're breaking our body down. Either diabetic or they're starving. Maybe those young girls that don't eat. You can do a urine test and see if there's ketones in there. It should be clear, not cloudy. Specific area, I don't worry about that. Creatinine clearance, all that is. Alright. Any questions on lab? Can y'all think of anything you had on lab when you were taking your test the other day? Did anything step out, or are you just telling me no because you want to go eat?
Yes.
We just don't.
After a test, I just walk.
Yeah. Right, if you think of something that you have a question about or didn't make sense, ask me, okay? All right, are y'all just going to go for your lunch hour since it's clinical day, or what are y'all doing?
Going for an hour.
All right, I will tell Jennifer then y'all are going to lunch at 11:30-ish. Be back at 12:30-ish. Okay? All right, y'all have a good lunch. Be careful.
Are we coming back in here?
Yes, me back here. We'll probably have to transfer, but they're having a meeting at 2, I think. But maybe we'll be done.